In the peaceful, quiet town of Adyur, there lived a young man named Tund. Like many young men, Tund had dreams, but his dreams were tangled with the sharp sting of poverty. He watched as others drove fancy cars, wore expensive clothes, and commanded respect wherever they went. He yearned for that life, for a name that would make people pause, a name that would echo with power. The weight of being unseen, of being poor, grew heavier on his shoulders with each passing day. He was tired of the struggle, tired of the constant want. He wanted more, and he was willing to do almost anything to get it. One evening, as the sun bled its last orange and purple hues across the sky, Tund was walking home. His steps were heavy, his mind clouded with thoughts of his empty pockets. As he passed the old mango tree at the center of the village, a landmark that had stood for generations, he saw a figure sitting in the deepening shadows. It was a strange old man, his face a roadmap of wrinkles, his eyes holding a peculiar glint that seemed to absorb the twilight. Tund hesitated, a shiver running down his spine, but the old man simply smiled, a slow, knowing smile. "Young man," the old man's voice was like the rustling of dry leaves, ancient and brittle. "I see the hunger in your eyes, not for food, but for something more. I can give you everything you desire. The cars, the respect, a name that will be feared and admired." The offer hung in the still night air, a tantalizing promise. Tund's heart hammered against his ribs. This was it, the chance he had been waiting for. But he knew, deep down, that such gifts never come without a price. What do you want in return?" Tund asked, his voice barely a whisper. The old man's smile widened, revealing gums as dark as the night. "A small price," he croaked. "You must give me the soul of someone you love." The air grew cold. Tund's mind raced, a whirlwind of faces flashing before his eyes. Friends, distant relatives. But the old man's gaze was unwavering, demanding a sacrifice of true, deep love. For a moment, Tund thought of his mother, Mama Ijeoma, the woman who had sung him to sleep, who had shared her last piece of yam with him, whose love was the only true wealth he had ever known. But greed is a powerful poison. It blinds the eyes and hardens the heart. The image of wealth, of power, of a life without struggle, consumed him. In that moment of weakness, blinded by the dazzling mirage of riches, Tund leaned in close to the old man and whispered the name that should have been his sanctuary, Mama Ijeoma. That very night, as the moon stood high and cold in the sky, a piercing scream shattered the silence of Mama Ijeoma's small hut. She woke up drenched in sweat, gasping for air, her heart pounding as if trying to escape her chest. She told the neighbors the next day that she had a terrible nightmare, a feeling of something precious being violently ripped away from her. She felt hollow, a ghost in her own skin, but no one understood. They simply offered her words of comfort, unaware of the dark pact that had been sealed under the mango tree. For Tund, the next morning was like a dream come true. His luck had turned so dramatically it felt like magic. A long-lost relative, one he barely remembered, had supposedly passed away and left him an immense fortune. Money flowed into his life like a river. He bought the biggest house in Adyur, filled his garage with gleaming cars, and adorned himself with gold and expensive fabrics. The villagers who once ignored him now bowed their heads in respect. His name, Tund, was on everyone's lips. He had everything he ever wanted. He had become the man he had dreamed of being. But as his worldly possessions grew, something inside him began to wither and die. The joy of his new wealth was fleeting, a thin veneer over a growing abyss of despair. His laughter felt hollow, his feasts tasted like ash. The first sign that something was terribly wrong was the nights. Sleep, once a peaceful refuge, became a realm of torture. Each night, as the wind howled outside his mansion, he would hear it, a faint, mournful voice carried on the breeze, calling his name. Tund, Tund. It was his mother's voice, not as he knew it, warm and loving, but filled with an unbearable sorrow. He would sit up in his silk sheets, his body cold with sweat, staring into the darkness, the sound echoing in his soul. Then came the mirrors, polished, expensive mirrors that reflected his opulent lifestyle. But when Tund looked into them, he no longer saw his own reflection. At first, it was a flicker, a trick of the light, but soon, it became undeniable. Staring back at him was not his face, but his mother's. He saw her eyes, once bright with life, now filled with an ocean of unshed tears. He saw her face etched with a silent, profound pain. He saw her mouth, closed in a permanent, accusing silence. He would smash the mirrors in a fit of rage and terror, but every reflective surface, a window pane, a polished spoon, even a puddle of water showed him the same haunting image. Her tears, her eyes, her silence. His newfound riches became a heavy, golden curse. The friends who had flocked to him for his money began to drift away, unsettled by his erratic behavior, his constant paranoia, and the deep, inconsolable sadness that clung to him like a shroud. They couldn't understand the source of his torment, but they could feel the coldness that radiated from him. He was alone, trapped in a gilded cage of his own making, haunted by the ghost of the love he had so carelessly traded. His wealth brought him no comfort, only a stark, painful reminder of its terrible cost. His nights were sleepless, his days filled with a gnawing dread. The guilt was a physical weight, pressing down on him, stealing his breath. One moonless night, his torment reached its peak. He got into his most expensive car, intending to drive, to escape the suffocating walls of his mansion, to outrun the voice on the wind. But he was no longer in control. His hands were on the steering wheel, but it turned of its own accord. His foot was off the pedal, but the car accelerated, speeding through the dark, deserted streets of Adyar. It was as if an unseen force was guiding the vehicle, steering it with a cold, vengeful purpose straight towards the deep, dark river of Adyar. Tun screamed, a sound of pure terror, as the car plunged over the bank and into the black water, swallowed by the river's cold embrace. The next day, when the news spread, the villagers gathered by the riverbank. They searched for hours, their boats cutting through the murky water. They eventually managed to pull the wrecked car from the riverbed, but of Tund, there was no sign. His body was never found. But as one of the searchers sifted through the mud and debris near the crash site, his hand closed around something hard and metallic. He pulled it out. It wasn't Tund. It was a single, heavy gold chain, one Tund was famous for wearing, and wrapped tightly within its links was a small, discolored skull. As the man wiped the mud away, a collective gasp went through the crowd. The skull, though weathered by the water, was eerily, unmistakably familiar. It had the shape, the delicate features of Mama Ijeoma. From that day forward, a new proverb was born in the town of Adyar, a warning passed down from elders to the young, a story told by firelight to caution against the seductive whispers of greed. The villagers would look towards the dark river and say, with a somber shake of their heads, "Money that comes with blood never stays. It always returns to the river of sorrow." And so, the tale of Tund became a timeless lesson, a chilling reminder that the most valuable treasures are not made of gold, but of love, and that some prices are far too high to pay. Thank you for listening. Remember to follow our channel for more stories that touch the heart and stir the soul.